Welcome back. Today I'm going to show you how to make a yarn pom-pom, like for the top of a hat or for whatever. So this is just using scrap yarn. I don't actually have a project in mind for this, but I have plenty of hats that could use pom-poms. So one key to making pom-poms is that the smaller your pom-pom, the fewer wraps of yarn you're going to need, and the bigger you're going to need way more to make it full enough. And it takes a lot of yarn, way more wraps of yarn than you think you need. Okay. So again, you need something to wrap yarn around. I'm going to use, if you watched my tassel tutorial, I found this little McDonald's gift card wrapper in my recycle bin, so I'm going to use that. You don't need to have anything fancy to be able to do this. I'm going to fold it in half though, because I want to make a pretty small one. Okay, so I've got my scrap yarn, and to start, I'm just going to wrap it around a lot of times, like a lot of times. I forgot to say that if you want to, you can lay a piece of yarn across here first, and then you can use that to tie your pom-pom later. I forgot to, so I'm not going to do it this time. I usually will, though, if I'm making a pom-pom, just because there's so much yarn to go under, but you can still pull it through. So when I say a lot of wraps, I really mean a lot of wraps. I'm not counting, I'm just kind of wrapping it until it seems like a ridiculous quantity of yarn. Just imagine if this was poofed out, how big of a puffball it would be. You want it to be a full pom-pom, so you gotta have a lot of yarn. Which is why I think it's a great use for scrap yarn, unless you have only a tiny bit left. But in this case, I have this blue yarn that has just been sitting in my closet with no purpose, and I don't plan on ever making anything with it, so I'm just making pom-poms. I actually have a bin full of scrap yarn that I let my kids play with, so I pulled this out of there. That way they don't get all my good yarn. I always think it's funny how people think, oh, you've got yarn, you can share some. I'm like, you realize that like a ball of independently dyed hand-spun yarn is like $30, right? So no, you can't play with my yarn. Oh, I'm gonna hope that's enough. I haven't been paying much attention. Okay, so I'm gonna cut this. I'm gonna get a strand of yarn to go under all this. I'm just gonna pull it through. Hopefully I'm gonna pull it through. Make sure I'm under all the strands there. And now I need to tie a knot. So you want this knot on the top to be as tight as you can, because it is what's cinching everything together in the middle of your pom-pom. The more loops you have on there, the harder it is to get a tight knot, but I'll do my best. Cinch it up without breaking my yarn. I think that's about as tight as I'll be able to get it without breaking it. So this is not going to work very well if you have like a really fragile yarn, or like I had a lace weight wool yarn. There's no way I would be able to do this with that. Not to mention it would take a million wraps with lace weight yarn. So I might even tie another one around this later just to make it tighter, but you don't have to. Alright, so this part is really just like the same as making a tassel. I'm going to cut, actually I'm going to slide it off to cut because it's just so tight. Ooh. That might have been a mistake. Usually I cut it on the thing. So I just want to cut through all these loops. Yeah, I definitely should have left it on that cardboard, but that's okay. You learn from your mistakes, right? Okay, see how much bigger this is than I thought it was going to be because of that? Like, it's like a small piece of cardboard, right? But I needed more loops. It's not a very full pom-pom. That's the principle, though. I also can trim it shorter. It's going to make a mess of fuzz if I do this. But I'm gonna do this. It's just gonna look horrible for a sec, but I want to show you that it looks fuller if it's shorter, even with the same amount of yarn. So the bigger your pom-pom, the more wraps of yarn you need. So shaggy. I highly recommend, putting the right number of wraps of yarn on so you don't have to make it smaller. But that's what I get for just doing it on the fly. Okay, so it looks messy, but you can see that it now looks fuller because it's shorter. It's not as floppy. So if it's shorter, you can get away with doing fewer wraps. If it's longer, you have to do more wraps. So, little pom-poms. Doopy-doopy-doo. This one needs another haircut. It's like super crazy. Anyway, so that is how to make a yarn pom-pom with just whatever you have in your house. You don't need to buy any special pom-pom makers or whatever. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Got fluff. And don't forget to subscribe to get all the new videos. Happy crocheting.